Mary Lou McDonald, please.
Ceann Comhairle. Taoiseach tá ceiste agam faoi broadband arís, agus caithfidh mé rá go bhfuil sé do chreidse go bhfuil Granaghan McCourt ag íoc 250 milliún agus an Conacóra ag íoc 3 billiún euro. 3 billion go scale euro. Taoiseach, it is absolutely crucial that we deliver high-speed broadband to rural Ireland because people want it, people need it and people deserve it. And that means actual delivery. Not delivering an announcement or a pipe dream, but actual delivery. There are very serious concerns surrounding the National Broadband Plan as currently constituted, and this plan, which is very, very costly, could still leave homes, farms and businesses across rural Ireland without access. If we think back here, this whole process began in 2012, 7 years ago, with the commitment that high-speed broadband would be delivered to every home and business throughout the state by 2020. And that promise has been broken spectacularly, and 7 years later, not a yard of cabling has been laid or a single pole erected. And under your new plan, homes, farms, businesses in rural Ireland are being asked to wait again. And that's not good enough, Taoiseach. This is a plan, bear in mind, that you have described as a personal crusade, and yet there are significant flaws in it that no one in government, including yourself, have yet addressed. In the documents published last week, the capacity of the bidder to deliver this project was cast in serious doubt, and the capacity of the department to oversee it has similarly been questioned. Why have those issues not been addressed, Taoiseach? The bidding process completely failed to deliver a competitive tender, and the fact that the bidder doesn't have adequate skin in the game and could walk away from this project after they've recouped their investment has been highlighted. What do you say to that? Minister Bruton has confirmed that the firm in question is putting in €220 million, and yet the state, in terms of initial capital, is to put up €3 billion, Taoiseach. You say that this is the biggest ever state investment in rural Ireland. In reality, it represents, Taoiseach, a massive state subsidy to a private firm in respect of infrastructure that the state won't own. I find that absolutely unbelievable. Rural Ireland needs high-speed broadband. We all agree on that. But the unfortunate reality is that over 500,000 homes and businesses are still without it and will be for years to come. So can I ask you, Taoiseach, can you give absolute and total confidence in this deal? Are you prepared to stand over this and to guarantee delivery of rural broadband? And Taoiseach, will you publish the full details of the deal, of the contract between the state and Granaghan McCourt?
Thank you, Deputy. Taoiseach.
Deputy, I'm confident that National Broadband Ireland has the capacity to deliver, and if it does not, there are protections in the contract. If the company does not deliver, if it comes back looking for an increased subsidy, or if it fails to meet certain milestones, the state can terminate the contract and take over the network. So yes, I am confident that they have the capacity to deliver, but I also understand that if they do not, the contract protects the state in that regard. What you said about the state putting in $3 billion up front as capital, that's not correct. The state is putting nothing in up front, in fact. The state only makes its contribution after the work is done. So the company has to raise the money, lay the fibre, pass the homes and connect the homes, and it gets paid for the work it's done as homes are passed, as they are connected. And that's why I think the way you've presented it doesn't tell the full picture. This is a €5 billion to €6 billion project, roughly half being put in the form of a state subsidy, roughly half being delivered and provided by the company, because they have to carry out the work before they get paid. They have to collect the user charges from Sky and Vodafone and all the others who will sell on those services to the public. What you're zeroing in on is the initial investment, the equity and working capital investment of €220 million. And if the company doesn't deliver, they will have to put in more equity. If they do deliver, then of course they will get their investment back and return. The risk to the state is capped. the risk to the company is not. And I think it's important to understand that. And we do need to bear in mind here that there was only one bidder left at the end of this process. There were other bidders, and Air, for example, put in an initial bid for a similar amount of money. But the fact that there was only one bidder at the end of this process should tell us something. This project is not enormously commercially attractive. This project is one that has risk attached to it. And in this system, this approach, the state isn't taking on all the risk. There's a private sector operator that is bringing to the table money, expertise, and sharing the risk. And there is a risk, and there's no guaranteed commercial return. And that is how this has been established, and I think that's important to understand. But we have a simple choice as a government as to whether we sign this contract or go back to the drawing board. And if we sign this contract, it can be done by the autumn. We can have, within 1 year, 10,000 homes across rural Ireland and 300 hotspots, community centres, schools and others connected to high-speed broadband. The year after that, we can have another 100 to 150,000 homes, farms and businesses connected. In every county, all 26 counties will see connections in the second year. We have a company that's willing to do it, we have the money available, and we know that we can achieve 100% coverage. If we go back to square one, we don't know any of that. We'll be saying to rural Ireland that you've waited too long and we're going to make you wait longer. And I think that would be wrong. And I'd be happy perhaps later in this debate to discuss some of the alternatives and why they aren't viable and why in a previous government with Fine Gael and Labour we went down this road in the first place.
Deputy Mary Lou McDonald.
Thank you, Taoiseach, for that. I think the best way to proceed is for the contract to be made public. If I'm correct, I understand that Minister Bruton has undertaken to make that request of Granahan McCourt. I think that is the best way to go forward. I don't accept your analysis that risk is being equally shared. And perhaps more importantly, that's not the conclusion arrived at by the SecGen of the Department of Public Expenditure, because by his estimation, the deal is front-loaded by the taxpayer, while acknowledging that there are break points at year 4 and year 6 for the state to review. He points out that at that stage, the state will have invested 1.19 billion and 1.95 billion euros, respectively. He further sets out that by 2026, the taxpayer will have committed 2.2 billion euro, while the private company will have its money back by 2028. Now, that doesn't sound like a good deal for the taxpayer, and the seeds of this mess resided in the whole tendering process itself from the very, very beginning, which did not afford any kind of real competitive tension or edge. And here we are. Taoiseach, I asked you for reassurance on the issue of delivery, because not alone is this plan very, very expensive, the really alarming caution that was presented to us in the documents last week is a question mark over capacity to deliver. So I want you to be very explicit on that issue. If you are absolutely sure that this can be delivered, that rural broadband can be delivered, and on what basis do you assert that certainty?
Taoiseach.
Thanks, Deputy. I've already answered the question on capacity. I think in some ways something Foreign Minister Naughton said last week summed it up for me. If we sign this contract in the next few months, rural broadband will be delivered and we'll connect 1.1 million homes, farms and businesses across the country. If we do not sign this contract, it may never happen. And I think he's right in that assessment. In terms of publishing the contract, I'm not sure if that's possible. It hasn't been agreed yet, hasn't been finalised yet, hasn't been signed yet. But if it is, I would have no personal difficulty with that. But because it is a commercial contract, perhaps that is not possible. You're right to say this is expensive. Of course it's expensive, because it's so ambitious. We want to become one of the first countries, if not the first country in the world, to connect every home, farm and business to high-speed broadband. To say to people all over rural Ireland that they will have the same speeds as those of us who live in the cities in Dublin and Cork, and they will be able to do that at the same price. This is enormously ambitious, and that's why it is expensive. But one thing you said about the risk is not the case. The risk to the taxpayer is capped. The risk to the investor is not. If this works out well, and if it's rolled out quickly, and if there's a lot of take-up, the investor will get their money back plus a return. But if it doesn't happen that way, if the rollout is delayed, if the take-up is slower than projections, it's the investor that will have to put in the extra equity, the extra money, not the state. Our risk is capped, theirs is not.